Okay, we want to start. We will start with opening prayers with the yellow prayer book on page 4 and 5, the refuge and the bodhicitta prayers before the teachings.
Sanje chudan soje chonam la sanjo bardu dane jasum je dage jen so jen be sonam je lola pensa sanje Drubcho.
Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings.
Manam khadanyam besimje damje dev deve jodan demba juje dongha dan dongha je jodan dava juje dongha mebe deva damem dava juje nyeren jodan yidan danyola neba juje.
May all Mother sentient beings, limitless of space, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all Mother sentient beings, limitless of space, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
Next page, mandala offering. Olen yen je ten ram jan jun sam je ram jan jam so shen gen jo pe so ma lu lo ye lang de ber la na ten yen do gong do je zong de so da le long ju do ba jen che da pong kam jen chen ta yon de ma je da de zong we mu bo je se gong mer je dan zen she wa sen je lo Mơ tang mơ men tha le yong zhe xian jian ga ne song zhou wong tao qie jie men qian len de ne lo men zha xiu per we san jie to ba sen jie lo.
An infinite array of worlds, each with 4 continents and the wealth of infinite oceans of realms. If I bring them all to mind and offer them without exception, please hold with compassion all the beings they contain. My body, enjoyments, and whatever I own, my aggregates, elements, and sense sources, my aspirations now and in time to come, as well as everything I grasp as mine. By offering them all, may I be blessed with the end of self-grasping. Completely liberated from the bounds of real and unreal, transcending the names and attributes of arising, cessation and abiding, coming and going, affirmation and denial, the supreme mandala is a natural state. When I offer it, bless me to attain the state of Buddhahood.
Om Guru Deva Kene Renam Pandita Sova. Page 11. O Sen nam je sambata lo ye se da je da wa je chong tu mon te ba yi ju je ko lo ko de so.
Please turn the wheel of Dharma of the greater, lesser, and common vehicles according to the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings.
Arabazanade, 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 Arabazanade. Ôi, thế này ta, tiền ngã số nhiều tông, nhiều số trang cái, thế này lô sát bạc chỉ ba chỉ là, này sát chân đất avi mixer chỉ là, ngã số nhâm đơn zon ba tang, nhâm đất thì chu là thu sam需要个国cấp中啊的，还讲搞完上不是res。
Yeah, so today, on the first day of the new Western year of 2025, International Year, in this special place, to have the opportunity to come together to listen to and contemplate the Dharma together is a really fortunate opportunity.
Teni tang aso changma zawi lama jabje Garchen Rinpoche ge loma tang kong ge jangchep sem ge nyamling ge jinjang paris tenra yimbe jimchen ji nga cho ge yang thokmar samba shangchep chog de sem ji ba ngun du song wi go ni ni nga cho ge chito ge ta chu ge pansen ge de lob jong nyam de xiaris.
So we are all students of our root Lama, His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche, and we are followers of his instructions in practicing bodhicitta. So then starting from what we heard this morning on bodhicitta, and then starting with proper motivation, establishing your mind one pointedly in proper motivation, wholesome motivation. Then this afternoon we're going to kind of have a mutual discussion of that, a mutual study session.
Tentra yintu ta ndorna chu sirwate samba zambu chanchuk sim kona la teni teni gewa jachechong la sokpo chapar yungu yopate tanang hyokwa Rinpoche ge song nang res.
So in brief, the Dharma is to start with wholesome motivation, to base ourselves solely, only on bodhicitta meditation, and then on that basis to engage in virtuous actions that can be small or big. So there's a difference in the size of virtue. But it all starts with the motivation that we heard Rinpoche speak about this morning.
Oh yeah. Teni namjin nga so sorjin ke chun chanyin jebi kaps charjin kashi ji yores be na charjin ji de dangbo so so go kunong chuya ni jamro simjin don ya tani lakbi la jitsen jambi yang la sorwa tapya la sokpate namjen cheta ga nang la takpa ta de chalen da nang yimba teres de la jimchen mixeriores.
So in general, when we listen to teachings on the Dharma, or when we give teachings on the Dharma, when we engage in this kind of study, oral instruction, there's certain things that we there's certain things that we do as part of that, and prerequisites, maybe a little bit too strong, but there's certain there's certain events that we do. So the first, for instance, is to establish proper motivation, our proper motivation, and then we recite refuge and bodhicitta prayer. Then we recite the mantra, recite prayers to Manjushri, as a Yidam deity. So there's reasons behind all of these things that we do, all of these kind of opening steps.
Tendra yindu ngasu ngong lama koma te so lop chong che tang jig de so kali jap ti chu tang tana hyopa Rinpoche Khenpo Dza Tsering korso na kire pe kali jap ya te lop chong che tang chigres te tang nyam de yinjik manjik so mixer ke yetam sigla sorwa tabni te dang te la tapashi ni then been jumping on la sort of then didn't love John Chiate. Taguni number some gibichu, Tomo mind below John Jetan series. Then you got Sondred Goris.
Sungbe.
Sondred.
So this is the same way that a teaching session starts in a Buddhist college or Shedra. And it is the same way that we've seen teachings given by the great masters of the past. So we've seen the way they studied in the past, and the degree of hardship that they withstood for the sake of their studies. Like again, this morning Rinpoche spoke about Khenpo Tenzin's commitment to his studies and the hardship he underwent. So we can see that degree of commitment, of absolutely needing to study is important. And then also absolutely critical is supplicating the Yidam deity. So that's like when we supplicated Manjushri. This becomes a very special a way of study that is special to the Buddhist tradition. So it's an uncommon, as in specifically Buddhist way of studying, is to pray to the Yidam deity, and that is that we become that we have this link to the Yidam deity.
Tenda yindi chunchung molam ka nang la ya, tani dakchan jamyang katan chi sarab gawa topar ta Dza Tsering mari gonda re jang katan tikarang re kangse tawaran do pa chongsa toran do nangum ni yorwa chonchung molam nang la thama ni la tani jasi sewa la ga yang ngan jampa yang ji sinji lap to sor ni kati pecha ta samna na to haku go yo na samlo tang ka jampa yang ngala roba nang ro chi so thama ni song yores.
But we see the same thing in the prayer by Shantideva, the Bodhicharya Avatara prayer, entering the way of the Bodhisattva prayer, where there's two different verses where Shantideva addresses Manjushri and asks for his blessing and his help, that whenever I wish to study the teachings, may you help me, may the meaning become clear in my mind. So we see him do this twice in that prayer.
Okay,
I have a story to tell you. It's a short one.
Mipham Rinpoche 빙 기바 첨보래 다콩 이나 콩 잠벌 양근 삼라 딘 통통 제가 단니 로 쭉쭉 중니 된다니 아니 이종 잠탑이야 딘 기바 첨보 차송레스.
So there's a great scholar, Ju Mipham Rinpoche. He's renowned for his learning. And he reported that in a very short retreat on Manjushri, dedicated to the practice of Manjushri, he progressed in his intellectual understanding of scriptures and philosophy. He progressed 11 or 12 years amount of study in a short retreat on Manjushri.
콩그 끝에 난 콩기 잠추 갈치슈 담추세나 용 갈치슈데 콩그 다공로 쭉쭉 야르머 토라 잠 차레스.
So, he wrote actually his summa, his masterpiece of philosophy at the age of 17.
쭉쭉.
Oh, sorry, 11.
강다량 콩기 지름보치가 오마가 ndreshi japtang mangbo chigla toklong che yores kong toklong che ni tani ro geluk ba gishi mangbo kong da zopa japsa yores.
And so in that work he kind of refutes a number of Madhyamaka, or the middle way philosophy positions put forth by Tsongkhapa. And so that actually attracted the attention of many Gelugpa scholars who came to debate him.
Ni tikapsa amdo hyok gishi ndongyak si lamachi kiba chimboshi chetu zachukhala Mipham Rinpoche jiksala zopa japsa pebres. Yenayang zopa japi kaso pangbo nangkente pangbo 냠도 빵보 난컨데 바투 rumbochi레스. 바투 rumbochi 코니기 토몽기 라마레스. 코니가 추적레스. 야.
So one of the geshes who came to debate him as a scholar from Amdo named Dongak, and so he came to Zachuka in Kham, Eastern Tibet. And he came, but the witness to the debate happened to be Patrul Rinpoche, who was like a Dharma brother of Mipham Rinpoche. They shared the same lama.
아니 니마 망보 라 니가 zopa 잡레스. 롤링치레스.
So they debated and discussed for all day long for a number of days in a row.
아니 잡아대서 그 바투 rumboch라 다 코닝은이 성키사레스. 설라 야카 토큰도 람니 드와티디. 더니 바투 rumboche 다 나게티 야카 당 팜카세 하고금면도 송레스.
So then the monks, of the monastery, finally they asked Patrul Rinpoche, like, who's winning? Like, what's going on in this debate, many-day debate? They wanted to know who's winning. And Patrul Rinpoche said, I don't know anything about winning and losing.
더니 옛나양스.
But
미카시가 따디 미pham rinpoche 콩기 따디 값을 지키나 바 kurtira insari bag na insari bag na la pa pep juksala para pep tardi jambol yangu ko jambol isi sempa ko ji ndela jarni ani konigi parla otki derwa ndir thoyangdus tindi thores ndongak yike mambo shiochi ilaja yolaja pecha shikshio tagrios tiga tana sala shiribche ayo te hakugure son Patrul Rinpoche lante tavris.
So tsuba jasa ba nana jo.
Mari mat khonso nang parla so nang.
So ba nan ti kundak.
Kundak tin don la jayorba. Ante da Mipham ni parla otki. Jawo.
Oh, las. So however, some people have reported that at the end of each day, when everybody goes home to get ready for tomorrow, Mipham Rinpoche goes into his like in a yak hair tent, like a nomad tent. He goes into his tent and he just sits in front of this statue of Manjushri, and the two of them exchange light from their heart centers. So Mipham Rinpoche and the statue sending light back and forth. But Donga goes back to his room and he's very busy with reading books and checking things, and so I think based on that, if these reports are accurate, it's clear who has more wisdom. So if we really want ultimate wisdom, it comes from praying to Manjushri. We need to supplicate Manjushri. And so, of course, along with that, we have to study too. And so it goes without saying that if you are not able to exchange light between you and Manjushri at this point, then you need to do a lot of studying too.
Garchen Rinpoche Kong la tata ngar chimi durje yasi lagle nang ni kirang maran donna dikiri so sarmang bo jorni tama de la konki kron rang goa ga tang mara hie odi te tak tak hie tap yores te rawo yena lobjong chang chang mares kona ndomba te mar jorna ya te ge chenlap chik lebyon yores ranging.
But also, as we heard this morning, Garchen Dorji gave Rinpoche a copy of the 37 Bodhisattva practices and said, it's enough for you just to read this, just recite it aloud. So when we say that you need to study, it doesn't always have to be like, I don't know, like doing your homework or whatever. Reciting things is also enough. You receive the blessings from just reciting a text, even if you can't understand it. Reciting it many times definitely brings the blessings.
Perna kargyut pago gomba te tsunala kargyut ngurtsu se wasingdoa tenro na ngurti soma ngur ni tani sama tenji de ranjing te lojong che tangsi chakte yore.
So for example, in Kagyu monasteries, we see this tradition of they have annual festivals around songs of realization, where all of the songs of the lineage masters are recited over the course of several days. And so that is actually a form of kind of study by accident, sort of, just innately, it soaks into you.
Oh, yeah. Then the patron Rinpoche did the song yore. Charanso Chuanzo Tongores. Sick don Magona and Kio Mari. Lolo Jenny, sim Lola Jandi Tombayana, Namzigna, Nanton de Soso Semnals, Yarkion Crescendo.
So also Pater Rinpoche said that you need to recite these Dharma teachings, Dharma scriptures. It doesn't matter if you don't understand a single word. Just relax, just stay relaxed and just very calmly keep reciting. And someday the meaning will just arise in your mind.
Ta yinaya terang atsu musu shuya de pa Rongzom Pandita ge songsigres.
So all of that being said, today what we are studying is a text that was written by glorious Rongzom Mahapandita.
Jidangi ni terang Rongzom Mahapandita song da ji shet goya ge jumsen de ngi tangbo chena ba nyonyo chi shugo yins.
And so I'm going to tell you a little bit first about why I, refer to him as Rongzom Mahapandita, the great Pandit, great scholar Rongzom.
Jidang ngarang tatang dela yongya te nga Garchen chuchok danjin shi ni lebi yongjunda dindi chigla ngarang ngunzen jeke mes. 노쇼 땅 던진시 용하러 어디리 말했어. 나랑 라만자사 용레스.
I didn't come, with a grand invitation here. I came to see Rinpoche. I came to see my Lama.
Yeah. 다 옛날에 간영이 rinpoche라 아니 삼든 균니 가 용기 예슈디 아니 winter teaching 값 때라 용나 약보 요레스 아니 저랑게 치료 때자 시고리송 근데 송송스.
But when I told Ani Samten that please let Rinpoche know that I'm planning to come, the response was you absolutely need to come during the winter teachings and you have to teach in the afternoons.
Tening nanin nga yongres nanin yongdi chiro nga so kambodan nga so rimucheni travelinchi yoren talo yang te nangin yim tangbo injeri samsong singara.
So I came last year, and last year Khenpo Tenzin and I took turns with a question and answer session in the afternoon, and I assume that's, what would happen this year too.
아니 말이 저랑기 시에거리 송근도 되니 이 가리 시에거리 시디 저랑가 담 송근도 되니 나랑 데 담이.
So, but Rinpoche insisted that I need to teach something, and I asked him what I should teach, and he said you should choose. So this is what I chose.
아니 이 롱좀 반트다가 송 담야라 nga jimsen kashi yos.
Now I have a few reasons for having chosen this text by Rongzom Pandita.
Teni 롱좀 반트다가 송 때배 진랍 침보리스.
For one, his teachings, the teachings of Rongzom Pandita carry great blessings.
아니 배 미스비 teni 용 가르치 거라다. 땅 사보양 레스.
And they're very profound.
제동 때랑 간부 단전상 지금도 단자제디 나한테니 마 천남바 추도양 추망보 장살조 망보 요리 롱좀 걸라 힘직 난큰 양도 네 걸라 망보 시야 나라 로콕 히라면도
And so, here I am giving these teachings in front of Khenpo Tenzin, who's also very learned and also knows quite a bit about Rongzom Pandita, and I feel a little bit out of my depth.
옛날양 땅에서 그 삼반 남타 제니 판천 름보지 송나 rolling 서드쟁이 당보 해게예 되는 가서 그뒤그 break time 그 지라양 드와텔렌다체 된데 지는 가서 냠도 럽정제스 추적장장레스 느낌도스.
So, but we can do the way Rinpoche stated this morning. So I will give some explanations on the text, and then after the break, we will have questions and answers, and we will do the Dharma discussion that Rinpoche recommended, and all of us here as Dharma siblings, Dharma friends.
Tani chitang ngarang la YouTube channel chiyore ti mingla ngi rongzom tagayens te tag goya gi jimsen te me mangashi ki rongzom panchata shi bi mide ngoshina sam samlo chi ngala yos mide ngoshi goya gi jimsen te kongki te gunni kongki song la torna chona samba yens.
So I actually have a YouTube channel, and I named my channel Rongzom. So why did I name my channel Rongzom? Because I want more people to be aware of Rongzom Pandita. And why do I want them to be aware of him? Because I want them to show interest, develop an interest in his writings.
Tendra Rongzom Pandita ge shirap de hal liba samji machapa tendra res ta tingi shen ka ka cha chuni means.
So now Rongzom Mahapandita's wisdom, or his intellect, his smarts, was really unbelievable, really inconceivable, and I'm not exaggerating.
Ni tera zunxia ba yana chenan ba zunxia tamna koniga la zunxia tokumari ni zumaxia pogumares.
So, I can't pull the wool over your eyes here, because we are sitting in the presence of our two esteemed teachers, and so even if I could trick you, I can't trick them. So I can't trick you in front of them. So.
Perna bola kipa chimbo pe maspachi gore ta khon jirumbuchi je tongka pa lo ma yang re ngulo jone parsi ngulo zapa pe kata chimbo re khon pok ta lurju chunjong dorji zamkhen ke nang ta zera deres.
So for example, we can take the testimony of other great scholars in Tibet. So, for example, one of Tsongkhapa's disciples is named Gyalo Tsawa Shunupal, and he wrote the Blue Annals, a very famous history, or the highest quality history of Tibet.
Kongki pa Rongzom bi kor tiore se tepkanala.
And he talks about Rongzom in his history.
Kongki Rongzom ke namtar chatsang song yi shugla kari song yore se na Bod Garchen ji jonders. Ndadang nyam bin kipa na sayang majongo se tsikden ri bichitang yores.
So, and what he says specifically is in the snowy land of Tibet, there has never been a scholar like this, meaning like Rongzom. So those are the words that he uses to describe him.
Tani nanyin ngi perna Rongzom nyenten ki ming tok ni Dza Tsering Tashi Rinpoche la ngi chandi shu yin si lingmur shu yin si lingmur shu bi ka sa ngi kirang ngu ni Rongzom panta da se wa de kan de ji ngun nang ge yo ji zhuo ji di yin si.
So last year I actually had a kind of discussion, public conversation with Dzongzar Khyentse Rinpoche about Rongzom, and I asked him, like, what are your thoughts about Rongzom? What does he mean to you?
Ni Dzongzar Khyentse Rinpoche kar song song na ta ngi shida labshig medos Dza Tsering Rongzom go song Dza Tsering yor ba de chik ta yin dan chak chak ni shida chim go chug medos je zang nga shida labshig medos song dos yin na yang ani khong ki nga la
And he replied, well, I'm not really sure what to say. I read this work by Rongzom. It's called the Tekchen Tsujuk, the entering the way of the Mahayana. And so Dzongzar Khyentse Rinpoche said, I read that and I didn't really understand it very much. So I don't really know what to say about Rongzom. However, he told me also one story.
Kongki Jang Khyentse Chujulo Drugi, Lomachikin Dunni, Kongki Rongzom Pikork, Dongchi Karsikora, Khyentse Chujulo Drugu, Song Jun, Herjun Gosons, Herjun.
Oh,
Herjun. Carreres and Khyentse Chujulo Drugu Nimachilla Terisonres. Tering Perna Kambachika Nangla, Rongzom Pantata Danchik. Je Tsongkhapa dang ni Longzom ba dang sam sarje pantre ta dang yi de nyam de yo pa ches Tsongkhap khong sam ga de khong la ta sar dang Rongzom ba de ndili jug ni ro damje de se ro ani kirim jamyang nam sam se ni de jamyang gu ba ta sarje pantre ta je Rinpoche dang Longzom ba sam ga ge nyam de khong la ta sar dang na ya lucky mari so lucky ka bo yore song dus.
So this is what Dzongzar Khyentse Rinpoche told me, is that his previous incarnation, Jamyang Khyentse Chukyi Lodro, Rinpoche said something about Rongzom. So there's like this saying about Rongzom that goes back to Jamyang Chukyi Lodro and Jamyang Khyentse Rinpoche, and what Jamyang Khyentse Rinpoche said is that if we had Rongzom in a room with Tsongkhapa, Longchenpa, and Sakya Pandita, and if the three of them, Tsongkhapa, Longchenpa, and Sakya Pandita, were all debating Rongzom, and Rongzom was in the position of the defender, the way the traditional debate works, none of those three would have a chance. No, they're all considered emanations of Manjushri. So he would make problems for all three.
Jamba chikde Rongzom Pandita de Lobjong de Lu Juksum ke Gabni Lobjong Charis.
So Rongzom Pandita finished his studies. He graduated, whatever, at age 13.
Yeah. Kongi namtar kongo loma dijoga nana tegerang triores. Kongi karison reseta. Ta nga lu juksum la samba zogba tang dra se. Ta lu juksum ni jik bolla yopi kanjur tanjur yike tsama pa lap chani kari jang cherango masba ichaya reseta. Jangaji tsama zogson rese.
So there's a biography of him written by one of his direct disciples, and in there it says at the age of 13 he had learned everything that he could. He had completed his studies. In other words, he had read everything he could get his hands on in the Buddhist canon in Tibet, on things, sacred scriptures from India, things written in Tibet, and all of that he had read, and he was done. There was nothing left to learn.
아니 드링이 드와치 당게 지난비 데링탕 담보 롱좀 비고 팅담보 하건 근 서요나 착장으로.
Okay, so I have a question for everyone. If today is the first time you're hearing about Rongzom, would you please raise your hand?
Okay. Thank you. Rongzom 바제라데 가디 종로 있어야 돼. 가서 담보 대지쇼가 있어. 콩 롱오 똥짝 지킨 혼라. 조지 아디샤 볼라 페피 갑다가랑 라콩 종레스.
So he, first of all, let me tell you, when did Rongzompa live? It was basically almost exactly 1,000 years ago. He lived at the same time that Lord Atisha arrived in Tibet, that Lord Atisha was in Tibet.
Then Rongzompa de chongchong 그 갑니 then 조지 아디샤당 잘요레스 조지 아디샤당 잘 디갑서 롱좀바 파처로 지nga tukdiri jiri lapyore스 tata texture topyo mares.
So reportedly when he was very young, he met Rongzom met as a child, he met Atisha. Reportedly he was like maybe 4, 5, 6 years old, something like that, but it's hard to confirm.
Rongzom Pandita de Jartang de Carresena, Kung Pai de Zambaro, Tankish Cholare. Tenda Yenzang, George, Wizang, Narini Mara, Wizang la people, Lamkala, Jubi, Pepi Gas, then Lasala Malep, Mun de Langiore.
So, in terms of how this meeting came about, Rongzom was born in Tsang, so it's sort of like a western, kind of little bit western part of central Tibet. and so Atisha was on his way, from India into, on his way to Lhasa. He was traveling through central Tibet. And when he was just outside of Lhasa, apparently, they met on the road.
Tikap's Rongzom Amagi, Rongzom Pandita de Tindri, Pani, Tindri, Kurni, Tindri Peviores.
And so Rongzom was being carried by his mom.
Yenayang Kongi Chuma Bohuji here, Yores, Rongzom Pandita, Sanskrit, Lakjer Katoni, Teni George, and Kamershiris.
So he was, even though he was so little that his mom had to carry him, he had a lot to say about the Dharma. And he and Atisha actually had a conversation in Sanskrit.
Tikapso George, Nabo Chopa, Dematakparis, Nabo Chopa.
Nabo Chopa?
Dochin Nabo Chopa, Telupa Lama, Narupe Lama, Telupe Lama, Telupi Lama Zida, Lama Sortamba Yis, Telupa Lama, Napochopa, Then Nabochopa, Namtre, Naga Konlak, Chu Gatcha here, Tokomari, Sony, Tendi Songres. Pogodi, Poguraya.
And so Atisha said about this child, he said, well, he appears to be an emanation of rebirth of Krishnapada, who is one of Tilopa's teachers. And I really don't have anything that I can teach an emanation of Krishnapada.
Teni jis Rongzom Pandita chakchom mabo nangni ta tamchu mabo zamres. Tamchu mabo zamdi poken kipa mabo shik sem tugla mababres. Ko pola ji ju pogo shik ta pogo da tikapse yenchamar dan boba shik tindi tamchu mabo zamni karichi gore ta jagar ga tamchu to mar gyuriya marto boba rang tikapse tamchu mabo zamya ga gonshi yo samare. Neti boba te so ta kola gaba jamni chorang ra shik tini tamchu mabo tindi zamni karichi gore labres.
So a little later on, Rongzom became a rather prolific writer, and he wrote a number of texts, and this kind of upset a lot of other scholars in Tibet because they felt like, what is a Tibetan doing writing treatises on the Dharma? We should be translating Indian treatises into Tibetan, but at that time there wasn't much of a tradition. The Tibetan scholars didn't have much habit of writing their own texts.
Only both tik of kipa mangbu the Kongasala Zofa Japsa Yongres, Gabajasa Yongres. Gabajasa Yonkan de so mean that some Namtam not Diore. Then Gabajamkan de so Rongzom and Jarja digger, Rongzom ba digger. Pe tu hiwa tang shirib chimbo tang tinda yoba tin jarwa tang kongo deni song kongo tamchu ti zori ta wong di teni ngarjir meba chagni sangma kongo lo ma chagres chu nere ma yin kan yo mare se wa tini namtar na ti yore so ba jang de so pando ranka manta chu te tari shin ro ya gore te.
So of a series of different learned Tibetan masters came to debate him, asking, what are you doing writing these things? And we have in his biographies, we have the names of all of these masters who showed up. And so they came and they would come and kind of, come in really strong and trying to debate him. But Rongzom was so kind of peaceful in his demeanor and just had so much wisdom and so much intelligence that as they started working their way through what he had written, looking for a place to kind of that they could attack, a statement, a weak point or something where they could start the debate. In every case, these scholars, all of their arrogance just kind of melted away and they found themselves won over by Rongzom's arguments.
Tenda yindi Mipham Rinpoche ge yang teri song yor. Rongzom ke song te la nyaps lang ni jinlap nare matapa yo mari sen. Rongzom ke song ke pecha tawa yinan ra kong ke song diptap da ma da yor. Te so te ni nyaps lang ken te so la. Mamta yang chi long matapa te so ge yang sorwa tab ni Rongzom bi chi ge gyut bi te ge chu te so nyaps lang la te ni ngudup nare matam ken yo mari song aten ri song shas. Mipham ko song na.
Mipham, okay.
Jum Mipham.
And so, lo mataba se.
Ngudup na ka re matam kan yo maris nyong ta ya.
Listen. So, Mipham Rinpoche also said that, anyone who practices Rongzom's teachings, either his philosophical teachings or the different sadhana practices that he composed, there's nobody who doesn't get some. Because of the power of the blessings, there's nobody who doesn't get some siddhi, even a tiny little siddhi. Everyone gets something from practicing these.
Tani ta Rongzom Pandita ngajir nyingma la katin chimbo peres.
And Rongzom Pandita is also incredibly kind to the school of the early translations, the Nyingma school.
Kaptela sarma servate tarni tani changma yang sarba la garwa ma changma sarba la garwa koshi na sarba gangdo te nang yin cheni changma sarma jang cheni yang ningma te za tangnyuma yang ni nyam ro yo bi kapsu Rongzom Pandita ge ningma ge ta pe na zokpa chimbo la sokpa te pe masab dakbo jab yores.
And he lived during the time when the new translations were beginning. We call these the sarma, or the new translations. And, everybody likes new things. And so, if you're going to eat an apple, you want it to be a fresh apple, The same thing. Everyone was so excited about the new translations that the Nyingma teachings, the early translations, started to kind of be overlooked and maybe fall a little bit into neglect, and except for Rongzom, appeared to really take care of the Nyingma teachings and promote the great perfection, the Dzogchen tradition in this era.
인나양 대당냠도 콩그 쌀마가 땀발라 판빼면서 딱 요리스. 하 리바 딱 요리스. 빼자자마나 쌀마가 뎀촉 거기 윷 제바양 짬 요리스. 대전도는 잠벌 상던 답이나 가서 잠을 야면다가 어디가 꼴라요 줄요리스 뭐 흰지가 꼴빼 뭐 콩그 줄와대 하장 식침 뭐지마 라로 받던데 속 망약 청마가 나라야 롱좀 그 줄을 이게 돼서 요리스 디강라 사르캬바가 나라 요비 빼나가 저거 근데 그 아서 나송 종짓다 그래서 나송 종짓 대소양 참아양 롱좀 그 줄이 요리스 다 참아 줄이스 이거 말때 마부 줄이 요리스
But he also was extremely learned in the new translations. He studied many of the newly translated scriptures. He, for instance, wrote a commentary on Chakrasamvara. And then he wrote a commentary also on Manjushri Namasamgiti. And he also translated many new scriptures, including many scriptures having to do with the Yamantaka. And we can see in Ralo Tsawa's reports, he credits Rongzom with many translations doing related to Yamantaka, and also other deities, for instance, this is a long one, Sarva Durgati Parishodhana. Akshobhya also. And then the purification, Akshobhya, and also the purification of the lower realms. This one tantric text. So he's credited with a good number of translations of his own.
다동별나 다당가 조유비 깐규르글롱 세와 대초양 롱좀발라 드라시오 요바 대초 지름보치가 사익 된지가 나라요 무스 진독스 된다인디가 롱좀 반드다 세와데 노가 사르마 닝마 창마 나라 드라 요비 메지레스 nga 찍비가 돌나 지바식 말이스
So 지름보치
제종카바
yeah. So that's why Tsongkhapa said, Rongzom is such a unique figure, and that he has written on and translated both new scriptures and old scriptures. So he doesn't really belong to the Nyingma or the Sarma. He's
다때 지름보치 송 말에 지름보치가 송 산익세나 토빅 산익 낭라 롱존 침보의 깃비다가 깐결고 롱기 규바데 롱존 침보라 투비오바디 korson yoris 깐결고 롱 transmission.
I'm sorry, I got that totally wrong. Tsongkhapa's there is a text that lists the teaching transmissions that Tsongkhapa received, and in there he received the lung of the Kagyu, the canon of the Buddhist teachings, and that lung comes through Rongzom's lineage.
딱강따리양 롱좀 반드다 세와데 나랑 은인 참쯤라 은이 리밋 세와 가서 지금도 왔다 리밋에 가서 이나pen 장원 진짜 왕본 장군 공주 리미레 옛나야 다 리미 톡마데 스레도 람나 파처 롱좀 바리 상품득스.
So, we hear a lot about the Rime tradition, non-sectarian tradition, and that, really comes to prominence with figures like Jamyang Khyentse Jamgon Kongtro, and so forth. But to my thinking, the first, non-sectarian figure really was Rongzom Pandita.
Rongzom Pandita sirate kantaring tamola hajang Garchen Boris.
So he's really important in general to all Buddhist traditions.
Tani tan di nangla terang shuate drill nakpu tongten lapku yores. Di drill nakpu tongten labya ge jimsen de drill chigla pe jangni tani kongki tanga so tawa nilu ke tawa de drill chigla pe jangni tan la ba ku yores. Di jimsen ge drill nakpu tongten song yores.
So now the teaching, the text that is the subject of our study today is called the Black Snake Discourse. And it gets its title, this black snake, because basically in the text, Rongzom lays out different views of a natural state. And so he uses the metaphor of looking at a black snake and to do that. And he explains it from different perspectives. And that's where the name of the treatise comes from.
Tani jadang Rongzom gu yang mixer chigde Rongzom gu yap dang Rongzom kong dang si changma lo ja lak la yungkan jang jang re song ku yore la Rongzom Pandita korang lo ja da jurgu la jugre sewate ta lorji yong tak khilen ku yore.
Oh, just one more point about Rongzom that's really kind of incredible is he, both his father and all of his sons, lived to be more than 100. So they were a really long-lived family. And Rongzom himself is said by many reputable historians to have lived for 119 years.
Jadang nga tsugu namjin pecha xia di sorjun la zingo yan la nga se ni yong kari zamna yon zapa po surhindu siwa di yulun chi kuya de nalin taga tagan kipa nangu song duni zong de digin chatang de yore. Tanda nga tsugu Rongzom bi kor xia ya de yong de Rongzom ba de ma kanda xin ba ha ko na nga su su ji wo ji ba chani duni di song de yang ta jadang xin sa mari sam ba de dingjok ji lef kare se so so ga za chenpo ji ni jang na di nang ki ji pantok ya chenpo yong kare daga zum ji ji ni jang na pantok ya daga zum mar to yong ko mari di jimsen ga nga su Rongzom bi ko tok zum shi go ya ga jimsen teres.
So kind of traditionally when we teach Buddhist texts, we start with kind of 5 fundamental kind of questions about the text that need to be answered, one of whom is who wrote the text. So this is a tradition that starts with Nalanda and ancient Buddhist learning. And so it's important to know, for instance, who wrote the text. And so that's one reason that I've started with this, to tell you a little bit about who Rongzom is, who the author of this teaching is. Because if you just think, the idea is you need to understand that this is not written by just an ordinary, writer. But if you can start to understand, what a special person he is and what a special teaching he may have left us, that when you start to feel that you are studying something special, then you really get some energy behind your study, and it's much more beneficial. Whereas if you just feel kind of lukewarm about what you're studying, it doesn't lead to very much benefit usually.
Ta tekpan thomanji tapchuji cheptak la soni. Ta tekpan thombo na tekpa mamba sena ta takpa dini ogmanigi tawa dong chopi cheptak la mangbo yore de ndor duna ndandare soni kong songshas.
So if we start with the opening sentence, it says the categories of views and practices, or views and conduct belonging to the higher and lower vehicles. So in other words, what we're going to learn about in this text are the different viewpoints and the practices that correspond with those viewpoints for both the higher vehicle and the lower vehicles. And how so? They may be understood in summary form as follows. So this text is going to give us a summary of such things.
Oh yeah. Tani ta tambo te la tekpa thombo se na kandari. Takpa mamba se na kandari. Tengi ragram chi shugo yins.
So I'm going to start by asking, what is a high vehicle look like and what does a lower vehicle look like? Let's start with that.
Chertang yang tekpa ramba gu serwanda wo tendi yori te ndi nang la takman serwa yona zo de nyan tu dang ani rangsang ji wada tendi ge te takpa dang teni tekchen se on de takchen tekpa chenbu ndo dang teni sang wada tendi ge yin da wo ji ge nang la jugna de kres sang la yang sang chertang ba dang sang lamet dang zokchin dang Tindi iwa cheni ona yonku yores.
Lame?
Lame pa, lame.
So, in general, we can say that there are 9 vehicles. That's a standard 9 vehicles. But in terms of this text, what is differentiated is between the vehicles of the Shravakas, or the hearers, the disciples, and also in similar categories, the Pratyeka Buddhas, the individual realizers. And then that's one of the lower vehicles. Then we have the vehicles of the Mahayana. And here the real distinction we can draw a distinction within the greater vehicle into Sutra Mahayana and secret mantra, or Tantric Mahayana. And then within the secret mantras themselves, we can draw a distinction between the kind of general tantras and then unsurpassed tantra, referring to Dzogchen in the Great Completion.
Chadangi perna tiring ngatu Rinpoche te song songwa tarba chimbu ndo long chang ni tekpa chimbu de jamsu nang yin dang tekpa chung de balang ki mikpa ge ji ge chu nang yin ge tendi jigri se ha de takpa kong ko chabar song do wa o den de dan de yoris.
So this is actually picks up on Rinpoche's statement this morning, where he quoted a Mahayana sutra as saying that the difference between the differences between the vehicles can be likened to the ocean. That the Mahayana is like the ocean, and then the lower vehicle is like the amount of water that fills a cow's hoof print. So it's quite similar. The point being made here.
Dza Tsering Tashi pe na nga so go drop de so ndomba de so tong yong de ge pe na nyong ni ge gap se so hla gom ya do shi da yo ma res dan zik senpa dan shi senpa ni par la hewa kyabar chimbo yo res
the
nyong ni chogan do na
so for example, we can see this in our in practices, the sadhana practices and so forth. So for instance, if you're familiar with the Nyungne practice, like if this fasting practice, there's not actually very much time to meditate upon the deity because there's so many different things happening, different sessions and breaks and all these things happening.
And Jimson Congress in the Nyoni Tao Dang, the Zurich, the Mancheva, Chiba Lamni, Jarjut on Jujit Consultoyo Sanres, La Soparis.
So one reason for this is that the Nyungne generally is categorized as an outer tantra, and so it belongs to what are called like Kriya and Charya tantras, these action and conduct tantras.
Tela Jondi Nala, Chiba Lakuyo, Chinangachi.
And so in this scripture, Rongzom refers to those similar types of tantras as the outer tantras. You'll see.
Teni 딱 가장 가지고 덮친다고 딱 된디 요 많이 덮친. 된다고 얘나 그냥 낭바 따르던로요. 니 나라 그냥 낭바스 찍대 베시다요. 디 찍대 좋아한 가서 낙바 잡아 옛날 법정을 판다 그래요. 갑던 그 teni ngak nangba am ngak lamit yinzang teni tamyi yermetang rangye larsarwatang ye domani tamchik batang isipaniga chula chujak na gilla sokpa teni yongyores gomtang.
On the other hand, like the Mani Drubcho that we just finished here, that belongs to what we could call the inner tantras. Because there you are really, so, keep track of these terms. They really are helpful for your studies. So we've got the outer tantras, now the inner tantras. Now, the Mani Drubcho that we just finished, there we are really visualizing ourselves as the deity, and we are visualizing ourselves as the Samaya deity, inviting the wisdom deity to dissolve into us, like water dissolving into water. So there are these, stages to the meditation, and that's what makes it a practice of the inner tantras.
Teni ta zokpa chimbo ga kapsu teni shira gomya yo marsita zolwa mepa song ni perna Rinpoche ga hong song tong chama char de tenda woresita.
So, then once you visualize yourself as Avalokiteshvara, then you maintain that, you meditate upon that for a while. But now when we come to something like Dzogchen, again, there's really not much to meditate upon. It's like when sometimes Rinpoche says hung really strongly, everything's done, it's finished. That's that.
제장 가서 가리 곰난지기 요래때 ndri chin rimbaji do gomya te la ti tawa ge japjong manda ba si tok ni yong yo pa te ta chama ge nang ge yeri tingu chu go ri tingu chu ya la ndi ge pe pan tok res.
So there's often not that much difference or significance, maybe you could say, to what we're meditating upon. It's the view underlying what we're doing, the view in the background. It's the view in the background that makes the difference. And so it's very important, therefore, to understand what your view is and what the significance of different views might be. And so that's what's so helpful about this text.
제장 가서가 남진 초가 돈나 라 곰고래 랍디 가서다 다 살탑 고래 곰고래 저 곰고요래데 곰고야 그 점천디 그 잡종 그 따와디 땅라 삼로데 저시 고아식 마차나 곰바 짱바 그 각보요레스 제장 가서 남진 따와 곰바 쪼바섬 세니 따와데 당보 약요 점천데레스 망지레스 참마.
So we often say, okay, if you need to meditate upon the deity, so you kind of establish this visualization, and then now you're going to meditate on the deity. But what is the reason for that? We don't always take the time to think about it to come to an understanding, and so it's really that our meditation depends upon our viewpoint. It's going to follow whatever our viewpoint is. That's why we have this trio: view, meditation, and conduct. So it all starts with the view. The view is the foundation.
저당 그 양이 양바지 전서 가상가 당부 레비가서 rinpoche 당에 보여야 롱좀 비고라 까머테트 정성스.
Okay, I just remembered something else to share with you. When I first got here, I talked to Rinpoche a little bit about Rongzom.
rinpoche 그 콩당부 종칸는 처럼 폐ብ니 양결은 칸보 민스르 rinpoche 지사라 폐인성거든.
So Rinpoche said when he first was released from prison that he went to see Khenpo Dza Rinpoche.
근데 칸보 민스르 그 인칭 민치 그 콩라 롱좀 마하판티다 그 깜밤대지 락고근도 송송스.
And Khenpo Dza said that he was like dead set on getting a hold of the collected works of Rongzom Mahapandita. That's what he was trying to find.
Yeah, think of the Rongzom go song to Ragona Pe Kalikabora, some Mesa Tanzara here, Yomarada.
So at that point, it was really hard to get a hold of any Dharma texts and anything written by Rongzom because everything had just been burnt.
Just on think of the Nangching, person Gargomba Yanamana, Tendiji Lamachikin Tia Song. Jig Kona Bitapsi on the song, the Rambo Shiwachilla song, any Rongzom go Kambam de Luni Nakarina Ragni, young Kirtin in Kambomaser and Puchilla Puris.
Gargombanir.
Yeah, Hakomas on Saruchi, Nangching Chapachi songs. Chehagunda, Lassa. Gargombayim Hakomas. Sakando Somas.
So, not clear on the exact details, but actually it turned out that someone in Nangchen was able to get a copy of Rongzom's collected works and offered them to Khenpo Munsal.
Jetan Konan be on Jetan Rongzomba, Tachimbo Yore, the Charan to Hamakores.
So even Rinpoche considers Rongzom Mahapandita to be very important, and you might not know about him, but...
Tandikaf Satere. Lui Dang, Ngak Dang, Yiki Dupis, Lui Dang, Ni Dang, Juyurta, Nawan, Dela, Deni, Tawa Natsong Jokte, that it sick the Pekachimbore. Natsogan Jicting Kamna Tawa, Sevachi Yopate, Kandachini, Namjak Chekeri, Rongzom Betang, the Tawi on the hip chow, the Jiwatigua. Jicting Kamnangato Tawa, Sera Yopate, Kandachini, Namjak the Yonkuyores, Tambo Tejertache.
So the next sentence in the text is, the various views are posited based upon the appearing of embodiments, locations, and objects, which are encompassed by body, speech, and mind. So this is a really crucial line, because here Rongzom is saying, like, what is the view? Where do these views come from? What are the different views that we can have? And so he's going to go into it in detail. But here he's opening with a question, basically. What is the view? What are possible views?
Jetangi Ndodi Changpi Jawa, what you are Jawa. Changpi Jawa. Ndodi Changpi Jawa, Nana, Tawi, you are some Drikung Kagyu. The Gap Dela, Tawi, you are Mantaya, Tadrum Mandrava, some Drikung. Dinala Nambagatawa Yore.
So in the so there's a sutra named the Brahma Jala Sutra, the net of Brahma, and in there it lists 360 different philosophical views, or sort of different viewpoints, some of which are Buddhist and some of which are not Buddhist.
Oh yeah. Tendra yendi tata yena nga chon zambalang la mangzo wa tawa la sopan jiktin ke tawa tan teni la yopa tan la mepa la sopan jiktin ta chulok ku tawa la sopa tawa ramada yores ti tawa te so garchi ni yong ku yores Rongzom be tangbu trawa te tangres.
So we can also just look around the world and see all of the different viewpoints that are out there, from, democracy to on and on, all different kinds of religious views as well. There is God and there is no God and so forth. So Rongzom is saying, where do all these views come from?
Tawa sewa te tangbu te de songdoa lu tang, ngak tang, yit. Teni di nang ta ma di pa yo mare. Di bi lu tang, ni tang long se jopas. Lu se na da nga zu zukpo so so re, nroa ri tuk zukri. Teni ni se na ta ji ndo kam zuk mi ka kam la so ba ni re. Long chu se na ta nga so pan sang pa la pe chu ta ngu bo chama long chu ro. O teres. Te tar da na wa te la ta teni yakres. Yana nawa te tawareves na mares. Ta yetri jinin zukuyore.
Okay, so so Rongzom's answer is the view, various viewpoints come from body, speech, and mind. They are posited based upon. They are posited in some kind of condensation of body, speech, and mind, and So from body, speech, and mind, these kind of can be boiled down to then embodiments. So that's our body. And then locations here refers to the different realms that beings can be born into. And then objects here refers to things that we enjoy, sense objects. And so it's out of these that views arise. And so, and then he asks another question. But as for the question of whether things appear or not, so, is it the case that things actually appear?
원장 나가 만나 시나 저게 시나리 시나 말이 디 사디 락 말이죠 공다. 데 시나서데 저와저요. 나가 레담 말이 세나서. 나가 만나 랍나 어다 정말라 나그래서. 변나 용 나쪽 완전 비 강삭선한다. 디 따르 만자바 임비 강삭대 소양라. 야나 냠링궁우니나 슬리 당보바니 사주바 참말라 낭와 코랑 나그레스 낭점요레스
And so he
디초라 조바 자고 말이스
Okay. So basically Rongzom says, but if you ask, do things actually appear? So he said that, the various views are posited upon the appearances of embodiments, locations, and objects. So then the next statement is, but do things actually appear? But as for the question of whether things appear or not, it says, for any people who uphold the various scriptural traditions, so, if you're on the philosophy side, then philosophically, no matter what your adherence is, your intellectual adherence might be, then, and then on the practice side, whether you are a beginner up until a 10th level bodhisattva, this is not a matter for debate. So things appear, no matter, what your philosophical position is, what level practitioner you might be, things appear.
옛나양 원나 가르치니 쪼바 말자그레스나 딱 무슨 나와라 drukur 메리스 정말라 나와데라 때 론덕당 건답다 레마리스 쪼바 잡고해요 마리스 데니 원나 콘솔라 먼턴비 쪼바데 가와니 연구요래람나 데니 낭위 찬이 제따리임바 지금 낭위 우본데라 딱 가르치거라 문전 제출 만다발라 된 연구요래 찬이 제라임 봐서데 담중으로 따라 당가서 다니는 문전 제 땅으로지 지금 카보레스는 지금 마르보레스 지금 다대 문전 제 땅시요라 지금 약보레스는 득보레스 어떤 찬이세나다 대 문전 제 땅 만다발라 된 연구요래 손이 당보 링롱다 어떤데 당샤
So this is not a matter for debate. So nobody is debating the fact that things appear. Everyone agrees that things appear. And so why is that? Because directly perceived appearance is indisputable. Everyone directly perceives appearances. But if that's the case, then why is there so much debate? So the debates that exist take place over, or the debates arise concerning the ways in which it is characterized. So in other words, concerning the characteristics of the appearances. So the debates are over, is it white or is it red or is it, blue, or is it good or is it bad? These characteristics of what is appearing. That's where the debate lies.
다 오나 때 벨리하오 당니 자자 쳇남바 로로당다 때저 고데르 로도
So things get easier from this point on, so just don't worry.
옛나양 타마직라 짬거를 못치 여러를 못치 약을 롭적니 낭충 없던 나리스.
So at one point, His Holiness the Dalai Lama was giving a kind of introduction to the Dharma in South India.
아니 낭충 없던 낭스 타마 약을와 연장 타마 정말 못치 대자 고대워직 송로 고라워직 송로 대자 착착한독 송레스 휴레스.
So the audience was mainly Indians, and so they were asking him, please, please make it easy for us to understand. Don't get too technical.
장군은 뭐지 독도를 이니 까균 나니 지랑서 고토 척척씩 된디 리라오잖아 나 용이 랍고야면 도와스 가르레스 된 까균 차탁지 나니 되니 만드니 작보지니 송레스.
And so His Holiness kind of, got a little, got a little wrathful and said, like, if you are going to give up so easily, like if you're going to get intimidated so easily, like why should I even bother being here? So he was.
Pena ngarandrawina ta khona ba chibari. Ngarandrawina tambungi pesa tasa ting kambu chuchap sewa di kondare. Lumdo na do dingi tikaps shender keta kasini chunji kherble gen derba chi huyin. Nyama riri la tsar chudugje tagringi. 고금도 삽주죽 따요. 옛날에 고금도 막고 나요. 저죽 따요. 땡은이다. 근데 고도 지마다 어디 빼 판독 첨보도 갑독 될라도 고금도 근데 지마다디 오 상데 옥마르고 어디 강게데 람상 로라 샤롱도. 촌이 따면나 옥데 따디 강게데 촌이 상랑요 요 말은 퇴야요 말 와대. 깔린도.
So similarly, my own experience studying at the college and first at Sherabling.
No. Khenpo Chuchap.
Okay. Sherabling?
No. Lundo. Kam, Pola.
Oh. Gonda.
Gimme. The Khenpo Chuchap Sayachori. Think of Gundunri. Gombang Mingla Lundo, Slapkari, Lundo Chugar.
Okay.
장야한테 시럽 내고.
시럽 내고.
야, 내가 너한테다. 존죽 시럽 내고.
So sorry. In Tibet, I was studying the wisdom chapter from a Khenpo Chukyap at the monasteries called Lunto, and so each day after class, I would read over the material, the passage we had read 16 times, and I really didn't understand it. But I just kept doing that at least 16 times a day. And it was actually really helpful because when you get further into the chapter, then, what you read at the beginning, you have something to connect it to. Whereas if you haven't reviewed the earlier section at all, you're really lost.
Nga tikapso lo chongchongre jamba ge siun dang tater samlo japchong yo mar charang so yang tela tu na li lawo yo wa chitang siun mong bu jang chare tanda indi li lawo yo re yena yang zabzab che ni janggo yo re mar to yang li lawo me na ani nyom dro tenda mana ros.
So I was quite young then. I didn't have a lot of experience or grand ambitions, for my studies. But I think you are all, adults who have learned many things. You're already in a good position to really get something meaningful out of studying with such care.
Ni tandela ndur dina namba ngayo seni teni tawa ti kansak mandawa namba ngagi. Ni 통sul mandawa namba ngago goni tawa chama de dogdogchini sheres ta teres tambu te pego goni shendux ta ola.
So now the text is going to give us 5 different viewpoints and using a metaphor to express them.
다 당보데 데라 당보 빼줘 봐서 공부 빼지 그 당는 다 빼데 드르낙 보지가 빼작 장가주 민라요 드르낙 부 동턴라 그러봐 데가 드르낙 부 죽닌 취능의 나와 레이스 드르낙 보지 그 죽데 추나라 샤리오레스 빼자 다 빼잠제 돼요 이거니 드르지거래 말했을 때가 랍고 말해 빼레스.
So we start with a metaphor at the bottom. To summarize, the ways of characterizing appearance are of 5 kinds. In this regard, we shall first cite an example. the example is the appearance of the reflection of a black snake in water. So the metaphor that will be referred to throughout the text is of a black snake in water, the reflection of a black snake in water. Now, it doesn't matter whether there's actually a snake there or not. We're talking about the reflection of the snake.
딱 강따라 프로모트는 저기 요래. 배나 줄나 보고 중년지 추당라 요래. 다 추대 총총 된 그 저 지금 나 요래. 민가데 데라 딱 요래. 데리 상로 딱 거스. 민가. 거라 잡니 딱 요래.
So you could even just to draw a picture, we have little pond, a little puddle or something with a black snake in it, and then we have 5 people circled around who are looking at it, and this is what they see.
미 담보대가 다 요랬어. 담보대가 찍다 오 드르누글람니 드르고 요랬어. 데레스.
So the first person looks at it and says, "Oh, there's a snake there," and runs away.
다티 공라 해송아 능와 스라티 드르치 추그나라 드르그 죽닌지 미글라 덴딘 통쿠요바텔라 나와라고 요래 오 드르둑람니 둔로야데 드르둑람니 샘크도니 탁자바테 나우이 체니 착사리다 나와 나타도 오 드르둑라비야 그래 데레스.
So the appearance there is the reflection of the snake in the water. That appearance is there, and then people see that appearance, and then they have a reaction. The reaction is to the characteristics that they have posited there.
강사가 니바데레스. 니바데 오데 드르멘도 다 드르그 즈니레도 삼니. 대상론 코르요레스 다 드르그 즈니엔세나다 코 드르그 주마그 드르지그레 마토 드르무니데 마레 삼크요레스.
So the second person recognizes that they're looking at a reflection, that it's not actually a snake, but it's a reflection of a snake. So there's not actually a snake there.
양 딱비 줄 마임버 시장세 운이데 마임버 시나양 코가 삼나 드르그 즈니엔다 그냥 지기나 노빠치 스크리 삼비 딘지 똑바치 끼그레스코 제니 코란 거디 다파 장마소야로 나 가리지거나 탑시 땅 그레스 탑지 님보 댐비 쫄와시도 세죠 탑시 땅이 다텔라 마트가야 탑시 노빠 용 즈닌 옛나야 노빠 조 스크리 삼니 노빠 마조야 탑시 땅 그레스.
So some know it to be a reflection of a snake, although they thus recognize that it is not a real snake. They see that even a reflection has the capacity to produce harmful effects. So, so they recognize that it's a reflection, it's not a real snake, and yet they're still concerned that it might cause harm in some way. And so they make efforts to rely on ways to counteract it through skillful means. So they find a way to kind of clean up this image or somehow get rid of it.
Yeah. Tani kansa sumbatega zungnin reshas. Me yimba tando ma zungnin yentang tinjin jongwa chimbo me sikden ri do tinjin jongwa chimbo se de zugbo yena koran jongwa yin jongjur se wa da tinji kin jongwa dang jongjur ke ji yor ba da sachi melong la so ba da zugda ro dang tinji ke trib yor ba du pi ya ta ka de tinji me zang tinjin jongwa chimbo me re da zungnin rang res tinda yin zang ku tak tak ngala so jab ya dang tu gi nda wo da tinji de yo ma re sang yo res yin na yang zang go ko la dur la hie ke yo zang zungnin yemba dang no pa ma chewa sinayang ku lakpa chak pok maris.
So the third person knows it to be a reflection, and because it is a reflection, knows that it is not grounded in the major elements. So what this means is that it does not have a substantial existence. It doesn't have a body that is made out of material reality. And so the major elements are like earth, wind, fire, water, so forth. So it doesn't have a body that has a material reality. precisely because it is a reflection. And so they know that it has no capacity to produce effects. And yet, due to the power of having previously been afraid of snakes and the like, they are unable to touch or trample the reflection. So even though they know that the reflection lacks any substantial reality, they still don't dare touch it.
아니 강사 이바로 왔다. 이바 때가 가르상 거서 동도는 중니양리 다 시양 시케메 시고야면도 삼니 강박히지고 저거를 따다가 시금도 와가 로공도 와 코강면도 와람니 비 직직제 그래서다.
Okay, so the fourth person then will look at it and recognize that it is a reflection, and as a reflection, recognize that it can't cause harm. And so that person will feel brave and courageous and, enough to even step on the reflection. So please pay good attention to this metaphor, and the way it's being explained here. It's a wonderful metaphor.
아니 강사 나바 때가 가리랬었나? 그 중년을 봐. 제장 중년 연장 이연이 노바집이 리가 지금 매장 노바지금 만독 세니 가야당 노바지금도 냠디 셰야니가 요 말이스. 대 가직 중년의 시비 방와당 랑위 로문종대 这样没做路，这样没办法，做了没办法。
So now the fifth person knows it to be a reflection, but since it's a reflection, something that is a reflection means that primordially, from the very first, it cannot cause any harm, and so there's no reason to either be happy that it can't cause harm or be afraid that it might cause harm. So this person is free from both of those two options. And so this person does not respond to does not really think anything at all about the reflection. They have no thought of rejecting or accepting it and do not make efforts in any way at all. There's no reason to try to remove the reflection.
Nangwadang nangwi chanyi serwate naropa telopa song sik nalan rao sigores ni teche na ba shoga yense teni nga su ngarso ja.
Okay, so as regards appearances and the characteristics of appearances, there is a quotation from Tilopa that I'd like to share with you.
Bu nangwi menchang xianbi chang.
So he's speaking to Naropa. He says, son, appearances do not bind, but clinging binds. So cut the clinging, Naropa.
Yeah. Nangwa korangi chorangi logo paratakni tela dangzang zamba mashugna panut kanga jekamari zamba shugna te yeni. So in other words, when appearances appear, if you do not grasp them, if you are able to destroy the self-interested grasping towards those appearances, then there you have it. But if you cannot destroy that grasping, that's when you get bound. That's when you get tied up. 제장 따와 스르바데 촉징니 가주 짜침보리 송크요레. 얘나 촉징니 따와 탐제 빵위시를 담비추는 돈뜻 봤으니 타뚝 그 똑바데 따와 탐제 그 님부 착거요레. 따와데 따와가 님부. 타뚝 따와데 따와 탐제 매바송 괜직 착거요레.
So on the one hand, we talk about views being extremely important and extremely precious, very important to have the right view. But on the other hand, we can say that the ultimate view is actually an antidote to views. So ultimately, views clear away views.
제정 달리 약슈댕이 다다니 시야양의 지마처럼 롭종 제사마로 다다 있나요? 근데 나만은데 혁레 쪄봐 강라 타마 domde 혁레 쪄봐.
No.
Tense in 타마 de la carrera viarsena. 타워를 시험받는 강양 매도 직대 가는 족바 친구 따와 말해 왜 람나 공기 따와 랍다 랍리데 타워 시험바 요 말이
So, we can actually look at the very last line of the text on page 10, the top of page 10, where he says that there is no belief whatsoever in any metaphysical view. These are the very last words of the treatise. So it's what has been translated here as belief is the same word that I just translated as clinging. It's not appearances that bind. Sorry, it's the clinging to appearances that binds. So here, Rongzom says there is no clinging whatsoever to any metaphysical view. So in terms of the view of Dzogchen, it's actually, the question being asked here is, what is the view of Dzogchen? Then Dzogchen has a special view. What is it? Well, it's actually, it's not that Dzogchen doesn't have a view, but it's that there is no clinging to the view.
조바 직전 성공 그 드리궁 공치가 나라 다가랑 성고요. 족바 침보 작자 침보 엄마 침보 생각도 희우지 야 때고요. 대딩 하우스 파르다 그랬어. 돈라 침보 숨지 마락비 똑바. 디탄니디 고녀 저러. 어때서요?
So
침보 숨지 마락 봐서나 침보 숨당 레라메비 똑바지 그랬어. 침보 인념이 디슬로디 코라미 교지 그러. 응? 따와 약시래.
So we find the same thing, a similar thing in Lord Jigten Sumgön's Gongchik, the single intention, where he, we talk about he talks about the three greats, so meaning the great completion, the great seal, or Mahamudra, and then the great middle, Umachempo. And so Lord Jigten Sumgön talks about the view that is not, that does not touch the three greats. So it's yeah.
Okay, thank you. Break time?
Break for half an hour.
Lasso.
Lasso.
The lasso the Kiran Chigula Purda. Yeah. Arabazanade, 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 Arabazanade. Oh yeah. Teni 당가수 문트니 다다그 나던 당지 리토니 감르쇼고 yes.
Okay, so we'll continue our Dharma discussion.
Oh yeah. Tenda yindu 지당기 택바 서와데 간다직로 고고 요바 니데 직슈나 삼성 택바 서와데.
So, what is a vehicle? What does vehicle mean? So let me give you an example.
택바 서와데가 렉처 그게나 야나라 군도와 야나 세군도와.
So in Sanskrit, vehicle is yana.
Yana servate 돈다 가리레라디 데니 존바 다 따능인 거 존바 덴지 그 줌르크 가서다 요치 덴지 따당 따당상에 남주당 랑코르당 덴지 그 존바 될 민라 야나라 그요레스.
So a yana is a vehicle. It's something that we ride on or in. So there are horses and all kinds of old-fashioned vehicles. Then we have planes and cars and all these different vehicles, things that transport us somewhere.
아니 띠게 택바데라 띠니 타르바 냥을 린디피 공방 토피 존바 다데 존니 티 택바가다 다데 존니 타르바 냥을 린디피 종처도 롯비나 택바랍고 요레스.
So, where are we being transported to? A vehicle transports us to liberation and nirvana. So that's where we are trying to get to.
드니 너 듣바서 여러 히럽지 바로도 심반 너 듣바가 나나 택바가 천예당 니측직송 요레스. 다 택바가 리시직 잡 요레스 택바라 상지 좀 된데 콩랑키.
So in the commentary on the perfection of wisdom, it gives us a
말이
the concise perfection of wisdom.
Yeah.
Oh, dodupa. I'm sorry. The Sutra Samgra. No. Sorry. Dodupa. Brief Sutra. For Shichin.
실신이 특히 짱짱 임바시거래요.
Okay. So there is a Perfection of Wisdom Sutra that is all in verse, and this is known as the Concise Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. So in there, it gives a definition of vehicle. It talks about the characteristics, defining characteristics of vehicle, and it defines the terms.
택바 너는 칸라 자르메 강친데 갓깃 대와 몸버른 토히 택빔쇼 대강 요니 샘신 담진 양은 도스 디송로와 다 택바 세로아디 남카낭 힌레스 자이 칸낭 힌레스는 비니고니 송요레스.
So there's a verse, and in that verse, it explains the word vehicle or yana with two metaphors. It says that it is like space, or like the sky, and that a vehicle is like the sky, and the vehicle is like a palace.
남카낭 예임부 염천대 배 야침보당 디 딘지 탐에 바임부 염천 그 남카다우레 송구 요사래.
So it's like the sky or like space in that it is extremely vast and endless, limitless. There's no edge to it.
아니 잘밋 칸스와데 자리 칸다우다 나라 lep송나베 쪼르나당 담바 덴디 그 유토 온와 판숨 속바이 비점슨지 잘밋 칸다우레 송레스.
And then it is like a specifically celestial palace, like in the God realms. It is like a celestial palace in that when you get inside it, it's just completely delightful and enjoyable. It has everything, that you might want to enjoy. So in that sense, it's like a celestial palace.
Then 따디 측탐아데 대강 존니시 대따위 탁바데당 찬나 then sentient tamji nyangal ni dip kompang la yaran ngot top kre song de song do.
So now the last line of the verse says that those who ride in it, or those who get in this vehicle, then are able to carry all sentient beings to nirvana.
짬짬 가서 추지고 뭐 야티 희동 대양 택바 만다바 야티 희동 다우시 고발하는 되게 요사레스 택바 스와된 노르나 냥을 리비 공방 토버 타블람 데르와 우니 현샤식 말아 강바고 현야식 말이 타블람이 비점선 그래와.
So sometimes when we talk about the 84,000 doors of the Dharma, the 84,000 different Dharma teachings, sometimes we can understand this as referring to 84,000 different yanas, 84,000 different vehicles. That, basically what that means is 84,000 different means or methods for reaching nirvana. So it's not really that we're, walking somewhere with it's about getting to nirvana. So they are the methods for getting there.
대양 노르데 랑커시악 바가나라 다디 콩 요래 강리스나 지선 두시 요지 바 택변 탈라 두바메 세니 나초고 삼로당 남똑드라만다데 좀 마족고 바르드 디그 님보고 추대양 조야요 말에 디 님보고 추 참마데 탁바만다와리 송고 요래.
So in the Lankavatara Sutra, the sutra on the descent to Lanka, the Buddha says that there are as many vehicles as there are kind of mental attitudes. And so what this means is that if your conceptual thoughts haven't ceased, then the antidotes for those thoughts likewise are endless and are infinite. And so we can see again that the yana, or the vehicle, is an antidote to conceptual thought.
대 점성 가르에서는 대나 다가랑 론도 대 인도 택바 남지 좀 타양 돈대당 라디 지위 어디 택바 들린 추닝이 딘듯이 잡고 요레스.
So the reason that I talk about this word is that it's actually the first word in our text. So if we go back to page 1, the first word in Tibetan, it comes in the middle of the English sentence, but in Tibetan, the very first word is vehicles, higher and lower, the differences in the views and conduct of higher and lower vehicles. So that's, this is a key term, and that's why I kind of single it out.
nanga mo 택바 스르와테서 당상 샤땅에 nanga 수 추깃 좀 추깃스와 지금 나 지금 lineage 온다고 지른도와 발전한다고 그랬는데 이문 인지가 lineage lineage.
So I think that we can also understand vehicle in some instances as like a lineage. It's a lineage of teachings can also be referred to as a vehicle.
Yena yang ngasu boke gena la garjut bi thakba ning ma bi thakba tindi la ya yo mare. Yena garjut bi tha ning mi tha si tindi sik be cho tangare.
However, in Tibetan, we would never talk about like the vehicle of the Kagyu or the vehicle of the Nyingma. We just don't have that kind of expression. What we do sometimes talk about is, it's a very awkward term in English, the tenet system. So it is like the philosophical viewpoint, but the tenet system of the Kagyu, the tenet system of the Nyingma. That is an expression that we do use.
저당 그 줍타 세와데 보케게 돌란 치카데니가 카가치는 이렇게 잡아요. 이 잡게 인스. 인지 강라양 대나게 딱딱 다요메 하고 마송.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this term tenet system, and based on the etymology of the Tibetan term, but whether or not this works in English, I can't say. I don't know.
줍 세나 가리 랍코르세 동다나. Rigpa dang samlogo, chapa dang ni tartuk sosogo, jubdundawo, nidundawo, domsigdawo, tanda resha, seni chik sosogo, chik benda chanriki jubdun sewa nang jinga di drup sewa de, ta nindri tak tak nindri sigre, samni sosogo, samlogo tak chapa de la, drup lapko yores. Ta sena, ta deli yambaji choni yongaya mandu, naka rang re yak samni, korang sansamdawo, jani, samdawo zizuni, o tan di nang landu, ndere sewa de, drup ta chakdo yores. Dili galmarongwanda wasik ta sosungi takarang yin sabya chigores.
So in Tibetan, this term is drup and ta. So the Sanskrit term is siddhanta. They're very similar. So drup is siddha, ta is anta. So drup means roughly accomplish. And then, or bring about, and then anta, ta means end or limit. So for some reason, we translate this as tenet system, which again, I won't editorialize, but who knows what a tenet system is in English? Anyway, okay, so we use tenet system. So back to Khenpo Rinpoche's explanation. The first syllable, drup, or siddha, or accomplish, bring about, that is that we use our awareness, our reasoning, rather. We use reasoning and thinking, contemplation, to bring about, to think about the ultimate goal that we're trying to bring about. And then, so we're trying to kind of boil it down to the key points or the summary, and then think like, yes, that is it. So that is that then is the end or the limit where you know, like, that is what you're trying to do. So one example of a tenet system then would be like the scientific viewpoint. You know, you have this system of knowledge. So you're looking at that. You're using your thinking to kind of bring about the view, the correct view, and then the second syllable, ta, or limit. That's like the boundary of that view. So that's like, okay, now I got it. It's exactly that. It's delimited for you.
제장 참참아 좀 타서야 돼. 양지 현낭 차워당 닌카장시가 레디오르시 디타르니데 냠링근 타뚝라다나.
So sometimes a tenet system is something that feels kind of dangerous and kind of little bit like frightening or intimidating.
지 점선 그 드라마 잡던 미낭라 근데 성로 점탕감비 라발라 임 잠비라무 임 양딱이라무 잡듯소 결혼기 점타가 당니 논출소 용나 디가우스 지든 드라마데 양딱 바타와가 남비 토니 나가 점탕감바가 디 논출 딜리 잡고요 손이 저번직 됐던 거 물론 답도 왔어.
So that's why we see for instance, in the prayer to the seven Taras, one of the verses prays to Tara, the goddess of authentic view or proper, accurate view, to protect us against bad tenet systems. And so, that's here we're praying to Tara, to protect us. If we have some mistake, if we're holding mistaken philosophical views, then we pray to Tara to protect us from those and instead lead us towards the authentic view. And so that, we see in this prayer by Lord Jigten Sumgun that he included that verse.
강다량 다다가 다 저당 그 루지 당 파지 종화군이 상로당나 리 택바 요리 점타 요리 점탄담다 요리 대다가 찹着대다 민가 비야니 점탄가 요리 신디나.
So in any case, we can see, through history, there have been different vehicles, there have been different tenet systems, different philosophical viewpoints. And so all of those here in this text are being boiled down to 5 people looking at a snake in 5 different ways, looking at the example in 5 different ways.
근데 단디 당라 점타가 당보데 냔투바 냔투지 택발람난 저기 요래 냔투비 냔투지 택바바 남그 점타 람나 저기 요래 어디 점타 디고르히 근도스 다 강석 당보데 냔투레스.
So the first individual, the first person, and the first viewpoint here is the tenet system, we can say, of the Shravakas, or the hearers. So we can call this the Shravakayana, the vehicle of the Shravakas, or the hearers. Or we can also call it the tenet system for beings who travel in the vehicle of the hearers.
다데 때자 진저시 맞점나 요코만도 냔투 바세나 간다리 냔투스나 째레라비야 이 덴저시 지잡고도스.
So here I really need to give some explanation. So what is a Shravaka? What is a hearer? What does it mean if someone is a hearer?
네 값은 냔투당 랑상지게 택바 니가데 고 냔투 바세 촉직라샤샤 도나 탁만 상마 찍바 냔투 탁바.
So in this text, we've grouped the hearers and solitary realizers together. So in the first, the first viewpoint is called the vehicle of the hearers, but we should also understand that the solitary realizers are implied here too. And in general, this corresponds to all of the Hinayana views, all of the lower vehicle positions.
냔투 세르바데 보케게 니 세바데 암초가 냐야리 투 세아데 암초가 투야리 다 딘디로지 거든레스 옛나양 나하모 카퍼 잡아야 매장 냔니 투야데 갑득라 냠도 요고야리스. So
this word here, now Shravaka, in Tibetan is 2 syllables, nyen and tu. So you could maybe say nyen is to listen and tu is to hear.
다동텔라 줄 얌바지요 투독 세지요 투독 소소고 투바데 뭐 양라 가리 투바데 갑득 파데 다가랑 파지 메시지로 어디 파 얌발라 떼야 돼. 투독 바 냥투바 민 얌바레.
So we have, someone who listens and then, also someone who hears. When this term was coined, we didn't have telephones. So if you were hearing something, you were face to face. You were in the presence. You were hearing it directly. We also have a word called a hearing companion, and that is where you hear something via your friend.
다디 가르라고요. 데 고야한다고 했으나 다디 고야 주요래. 가르르스나 랑상지데 라 뚜나 뚜니시나 냔투바 남노 쪼데 상지 좀 던디고 추송사고 코르다가랑라 요바다 상지 좀 던디리고 던니 우스 추숑칸 요바다 상지 좀 던다고 우스 담가 낭니 공솔란 리부토고 요장 아니 냔투라 비어레스 랑상기 딘디 말이라 it's different yeah.
Okay, so then now we can say that aside from the Pratyeka Buddhas, so this doesn't apply to the Pratyeka Buddhas, but the hearers, or the Shravakas, they hear the Dharma directly from Lord Buddha. So that's why they are called the hearers, because they've heard the Dharma from the Buddha.
다디 측디 낭동라 고지 양바지요래 가리코르스 동다는 냔투바테 저거 상지가 측 갑뚝라 가레송아테 갑뚝라 고알라니 갑뚝 니츠르테 하고 요레스 돈다 그랬어 델리 야치보 히오 하고 말했어요 돈다 그랬어.
So now they're hearing it directly from the Buddha. That means they also understand it directly from the Buddha. But they hear it like right on the spot. They get it right on the spot. But it doesn't mean that they have a particularly vast understanding, but they do have a direct understanding.
베나 상지 좀 던데 경 야쇼라나 야용거 파송라나 판로 그리 가리 람나 티제그리 뎀바리 리나요 디 잡종 그양 니솔 망보시 컨퍼런스 한국 주 말했어. 제가 그 년투전 상지 좀 가리 송아데 파 암자고 공견들이 있다.
So like the Buddha says, come, they come. He says, go, they go. He'll tell them to do something, they'll do it. So they it's on that level of understanding. They hear many things from the Buddha, but they still have this underlying background or sort of backdrop of other viewpoints that are coloring how they hear things.
상화가 니철 망보직대 상지 좀 되는 송그 상화대서 공수고추고 말했어.
So in particular there are hidden meanings and secret teachings that they don't understand. So the Buddha has many secret teachings that the Shravakas are not able to understand.
비난가초가 요거 산지르 그 나나 말 가리히야 영화 야급 니처도 하고 그래. 얘나 야급 그 상위 니처 하고 말와 비에 나셔.
So it's like when you're 산지르
스모테도 산지르 news
in the news. Okay, so it's like in the news there's all kinds of things you can hear in the news, right? But you're not going to hear state secrets in the news, There's secret things that you don't encounter.
아리슨전 때랑 포장가루 나란도 가히 전로선 설렙선 때 고츠요. 나 우리 잠나 가리제고 같은 고츠고 말아.
Oh, thank you. So we know that the president was here today, then he went there, and we know he's moving around doing stuff. But do we really know what he's up to? Do we really know what's going on behind the scenes?
어때죠 그래서 다들 어느 신고출이잖아. 배나 선생 그 포장 난그 리가 진큰 쪼대서 하고 그러와.
So who actually knows? Well, it's the people in the White House. They know what's going on, right?
대나기 상지가 송그 상와 난강원이 돼서 장첩 생각하고 그랬어.
So for the Buddha, who really knows what's going on? It's the Bodhisattvas.
제장 장첩 생활을 망라 열비시라고 그랬어. 佛子 열비시.
So this is why we call the Bodhisattvas the children of the Buddha. So that's Chinese 佛子, and then in Tibetan, children of the Buddhas, gyaltse.
배는 나가서 야시 락len sobdan 마데 인지 당라 저런데 보디사도와세 갑득라 장수 셈바티 저런도와 이나 보이게 나라 데 라비오 말와 佛子这个 열비시 라비오와 상지고 시 있어요.
So actually, in the 37 practices of bodhisattvas, in English, we always just immediately translate it as bodhisattvas, but the technical term is actually the 37 practices of the children of the Buddhas. So again, in Chinese, you have a nice word, 佛子, which means the same thing. In English, we can't say it nicely, so we just go straight to bodhisattva, but you lose that, term.
제장 대니 냥투당 샹주센바그 똑반 토문당 님 고런 림바 도면라고 돼 민코랑 그 땅이 가가차가 되어 그랬어. 민코랑 땅이 가가치 탑 그랬어.
So that's the difference in level, of understanding, basically, between the hearers and the bodhisattvas. And so that's why we also give them different names, because there's a difference.
베르나 상지 좀 든데 냥을 린다카 니마 찍을 롬마 참마 요 비값서 상지 좀 든데 메톡 찍 차라 남는들이 남들이 락바가 파파들이 진이 름니들이 락바가 창니들이 떼리지 뭐 참마라.
So when the Buddha was on the verge of passing into full nirvana, at one point, all of his disciples had gathered around him, and he lifted up a flower. He showed his assembled disciples a flower. And he didn't say anything at all. He just smiled a little bit, just a slight smile. So just about everybody there didn't understand what the Buddha was doing, and most of them didn't even pay attention. They didn't even notice that he was doing that. There's only one person got understood what was going on. And that was Mahakashyapa. The Buddha's disciple Mahakashyapa understood what was going on, and what happened actually was that he received the seal of the view from the Buddha in that moment. And this is the teaching that Bodhidharma brought to China and turned into the Chan tradition, or as we tend to say in English, Zen, the Japanese name for same tradition.
Nyantu sewade cetang sangji chomden diga tumung ki kachu songa de so nyamsa lani tumung ki tokpa thoba chikta changchip sempi tekpa seong diga dili jachewa ting sapa ga nitsur tokhen chikla gogo yores di takpa gongok sewade dinri chaksong res.
So when we talk about the hearers and then the bodhisattvas, the hearers have received the common teachings from the Buddha, and then they've practiced them, and then they gain a kind of common realization. Whereas for the bodhisattvas, what they receive and then what they realize through their practice is something vaster and something more profound.
Tati nyogda tsara tezan chogri, ta yana teza hieke yinsi. Gari rese na nyangtu takpa labi yongdi chomden diga dodo gari songri seyate, ya songyate dang tela nrirwi, tawa, gomba, chopasam korangso yore, janchu senpa gari kore, gari songri di janchu senpa tawa chopan nrirwi, di mandrawi jimtsang mandrawa chaka yotsang, yang di tawa de yang mashi rangshi chaka yores, di tawa de rangshi ayores.
So, now this is a little bit of a knotty problem. It's a little bit difficult. And it might get a little bit difficult, more complicated for a moment, but more troublesome maybe for a moment. But just bear with me that, if we look at what did the Buddha teach, so we look at the hearers, based on the teachings they received from the Buddha, then there is a view, a meditation, and a conduct. There's three things, tied to practicing as a hearer or a Shravaka. And then for the bodhisattvas, we can say the same thing. There is a special, specifically bodhisattva view, meditation, and conduct. So because those views, meditations, and conducts are different between both groups, then we say that, one group is called the hearers and one group is called the bodhisattvas. So now it becomes important to understand, what is the view? What is the, in a nutshell, what is the view of these different groups? And so that's what we will turn to now.
Ta ndatarse Dunghar tang dunghar kia ni ji chun da da kunzup tang yo. Ton dambar yang yo la. Te yang zi ni te yo perntut pi. Di wang ki yang tak bar ti de lang dur je baris. Ta samte la lak. Nga su te da stong. Te yang nyang tu ji chen de Dunghar.
Okay, so we're going to start with this paragraph on page 3 now. So, in a similar vein, the philosophical tenets of the vehicles accord with the meaning of these examples. So now, this metaphor of the 5 people looking at the reflection of the black snake. So, okay, now number 1, the first of these is the way of the Shravakas, or the hearers. In this case, they accept that these phenomena of suffering and sources of suffering exist conventionally and exist ultimately, and also that they are substantially existent.
Tani ndi kapsa dunghar sewate dunghar dembares. Dunghar ki ni lamna ta parcher kunjong demban rawo chikla ko alana dikserus.
So here, when we talk about the phenomena of suffering and the sources of suffering, suffering here refers to the truth of suffering. Now, the sources of suffering, basically we can identify this as the truth of origination. So 2 of the 4 noble truths here.
Tangindi yang dronak tongtan lan jirpa tenda yoban jalmason. Tenda yan zayang tin rishin notur yona ngake notur yens.
So I have not consulted today a commentary on this text. This is just my own explanation that I'm giving. And so if it's wrong, the fault lies with me.
Dungal kia ni se we boyi kitela ni den jong ni ta dungal jong we ni bi wa ta tang na ni kun jong tem bares.
So when we say the sources of suffering, actually the English translator has gone ahead and connected the dots for us. But so in the Tibetan literally says the location of suffering, but this word that means location is 1 syllable of the word kunjung, the source, jungne, the source, which is a synonym for origination, the word for the name for the 3rd noble truth. So that's why I'm connecting it here.
Yang ndrishi chik de ta tan de inchi injur parcha tin ra isro. Dungur ki ni se wa de dungur kang la mensa dungur nyangking ge yi. Te la ni lam na te ni ta sakchi ji phongbo nga so go phongbo te chak yores. Zupu.
Now, on the other hand, we could take this instead of sources of suffering, if we retain a more literal translation as the location of suffering, then we could also understand this not so much as the source of suffering, but as the locus of suffering. Where does suffering take place? And in that case, it's talking about the skandhas, our body, our flesh and blood body, and the skandha, the defiled skandhas.
Tan de chama kunzup de yore, ton dambar yore song sharis. Tit big nanga chimboris, ta takba chimbodam song tang batemadaris.
So now, this sentence also says that they accept that these exist conventionally and ultimately, both. And this is where we find a very big difference between this viewpoint and the views of the Mahayana.
제장 대랑가서 간영이 태원이 대시아예 니마 추춘이라 해예 다리 니마 섬요리 가서 때자 협착보 롭정체나 참참만 가서 좀타 이세 완다 원데서 때자 고와 착고요리 게루반다나 티쇼라 빼 롭정 약부치도 참말 내가 저 그냥 참수조 냠len 당보 리테 야나 참참만 디 좀타 이세 와 남작돼서 단칸 보고 나 송거다 요리때 야나 남바 참인 친구야지 그랬어.
So I taught this recently in Taiwan. I did it. I covered it in 2 hours, but here we have 3 days. So, this is actually really worthwhile to go into depth on. We sometimes talk about 4 main tenet systems, and in the Gelugpa curriculums in particular, they go into great depth on this topic, and it's very worthwhile. So I really think it's worth your while. It's, of course, yes, practice is very important, but here we have a chance to study this. It's maybe a bit technical, but, it's really worth your while to listen to it and try and follow.
Teni tayang konzub demba dang tondam demba la odi yong gonyok chigres.
So there's also a headache around the conventional truth and ultimate truth.
Yena yang nangba sangji pi tatrip te yakpu chik te manurwa shik ninka mepa shik goa lengo na demba niga nam yak genjok tang te masina tapsi kanga yo maresita.
However, if you are going to establish a Buddhist viewpoint that is, a Buddhist philosophical position that is unmistaken, that is without error and not dangerous, a safe one, you can't do it without talking about the 2 truths. You have to talk about the 2 truths.
Nga tsogo nungchur tsama chaparda nangchugo tatrib dang yong la gowa len tangga togni nungchur tsama te demba niga namjak mashi bi togni yaktang yakbo sing mashi te la nyom dikje tang mashi ni yong yores.
So really, all of our mistakes and misunderstandings of the Dharma that we fall into really are due to not understanding the 2 truths properly, to not understanding their relative relationship, how to connect the 2.
당보 nga tsu ming de shigo genzup demba dondam demba ziru demba nisena de nires.
So first we need to know their names. So we have the conventional truth, and then we have the ultimate truth. Sometimes conventional is translated as relative, sometimes ultimate is translated as absolute.
Perna pardon dawa chakpi oman jukpa te tatrip tat umi tawan toshu tere te kongum juk namara demba ni songjuk nyamlen te kachi yure song yores. Kong beji ge toni song yore.
So, for example, there's the great scholar of the Middle Way, Madhyamaka, named Chandrakirti, who wrote in his commentary on the Madhyamakavatara, Entering the Middle Way. So he puts forward, the Madhyamaka as the highest viewpoint. But even there, he says that our goal is to practice the 2 truths in union, to unify, to practice the 2 truths in union.
다 공기 자 낭바식라 빼자가 요래 나 가서 낭바 만장 가서 대당 지시나 저랑 소라시라 요지 말이니다 때 빼다 남들라 소샤라 남 가서 추냠len 젠켄데 남들 윤비와도 당나 대 건섭 덴바도 쇼바 이바당 돈돔 덴바도 쇼바 요바레스 대니가 약부 요나 아니 탈바 공방 토그리송 요레.
So he uses a metaphor to express this. And so he used
Ngamba.
Oh, I'm sorry. So he uses his metaphor is a goose or a swan. But since we are not birds, maybe it's easier for us to think about it as an airplane. So anyway, either way, I'll use an airplane. That you need there are 2 wings, right? So you need the 2 truths. One, you have the 2 wings of the airplane. You need both of them to fly straight. And when you fly straight, you fly to liberation.
Oh yeah. Teni ta concept dempa te nyantu pa concept dempa tang pena madimaka ta ngomba na ni concept tang tondom ke jaksar tang yani umar ka fu concept tang tondom ke jeshi jap tang ngozen che tang te zan ra maris.
So when we talk about the conventional truth, now that is, there is one type of conventional truth that is recognized by the hearers or the Shravakas, and that is a little bit different than the conventional truth that is taught in Madhyamaka, middle way philosophy, or in study of the Abhidharma system.
이나 네 값을 저땅 그 콩기다 탁진당 상근문이 춘용이 용대 거랑 택정의 용 연장디 건접도 세려나 나초의 저땅 건직팅의 미당等于我做长嘛个通梦个能出这个吧，我第啦跟着拉不有的，通梦个那完的啦跟着拉不有的。
So when in this text, when Rongzom uses the word conventional, now there, like I said, there are different ways of understanding conventional, but this text is a Mahayana text, true, and basically when he uses the word conventional truth, he is referring to the way phenomena appear in a shared manner, in a way that is perceived by all of us worldly beings. So it's the kind of ordinary shared perception that all of us, experience. That is what is meant by conventional in this text.
돈 담바량 요 송리스 돈 담바스 나 빼나 저랑 좀 톱송 난다 당매 똑송 난다 다동 요리라 그 요리스
Okay.
등어다 그 니드다.
So now when it says that these phenomena of suffering and the location of suffering exist conventionally and exist ultimately. So he also says that, for the hearers, they also exist ultimately. What that means is that if you reach the state of an arhat, as an arhat, you will continue to see this. So that means ultimately they still exist.
따때라양 십차시 요래 다 녀다시 요래. 가르스나 등을 요래라도 그 등을 뇽고 요래라고요 말이. 그 등을 히바디 우보 코라 지시 요래스 어때라고 요래. 등을 히비 추데 그 동반이지 말이 코랑까지 그랑 현재지 레때 코랑 우보를 덴드브레 라바다 덴드브레스.
So there's a little bit of a we have to make a fine point here that so when we say that it is suffering, now when you reach the state of an arhat, then suffering ceases. So it's not that the suffering continues, but it's that there is a material reality. It's not empty. There is no emptiness to this phenomenon, and so because of that, you continue to perceive it. So you don't perceive it as suffering, but
디 점선 그 냔투 남지 강석 그 닥메 떡요리때 추지 닥메 떡요 말이스.
The reason for this is that hearers realize the selflessness of the person or the individual, but they have not realized the selflessness of phenomena.
때 가르랍 거서도 퐁보다 요리스. 나 퐁보 nga라 떼니 ngaso nga 삼바 디 삼로그 요르드 겨비 nganzen 그다 요르드 겨비 nga데 요 말이. 옛나야 nga 삼디 그 삼사가 다다 당보고 퐁보지 요죠. 때 요리스니 다더니 카가치 요리스.
So what this means is that for instance the body and the five skandhas the hearer has a thought of, this is me, these five skandhas, this is me. And so when you reach arhathood, then you are able to overcome or get rid of the grasping at, this is me. But the body itself, the five skandhas themselves don't go away. So you're no longer grasping at them, but they're still there.
옛나양 데라 캬바르치고레 저런 그 봉보 때 봉보 락바가 좀 통화 낭진요 말일 때 락바가 땡지스난다 락바가 줄줄위 지지 뭐보 요래 세니 덴딜레고요 다 칸타랑 똥니다 똑요 말이 디점선 딘 점바데라 추지 당전라고요.
So we have to make a distinction here that the coarse material body, or the skandhas are still there, but the causes of grasping at them have fallen away. So what's being said here is that there is a substantial, there's a substance, there's a materiality that is still there. And that's because emptiness has not been realized. So that is what is known as grasping at the selfhood, little awkward, but grasping at the selfhood of phenomenon, the self-grasping of dharmas.
디 점선 그 시바 탐책 그 타마데 시바 까직 참이세니 현대 타와식 돈 담버량 요리 세와당 종화 그 우보 들다 드차르블라속비 차와 그 드차르직 요리 세와데 그냥 두부 좀 타르와 디 공수 좀 타르다.
So similarly, in this tenet system, there is extremely subtle existent material, extreme, like we can call them atoms, maybe, like these extremely subtle but material, substantial particles that are present, that do exist in this tenet system, according to this tenet system.
아니 다티 가리라고 거스는 베르나 랑코르지나 랑코르 그 잘락된 제르마당다 대참마 요리스 대참마 직역비 랑코르 세와데 돈라 요 말이 세완다고시 공소고 딘디 이와치 시작했어.
So one example it might help is we look at a truck. All of the parts of the truck are there. Every little screw, all of that is accounted for, but they haven't been fit together into a truck.
디엘라 탄니양 요리 퐁보 락바 랑진 메브라 똑바 세니 공소고 퐁보 락바 데소 하 담미임바 동니임바 하고나요 퐁보 그 짜와가 데 드차랍데소 데미트 똑요 말이스.
So we actually have a technical term for this that's, this is capturing the situation where the coarse body, the
데메탐 랑진 메바 똑송리스. 메바 똑리스. 차와데 메바 똑요 말.
So they have realized let's see, they have realized in such a way as to get rid of the coarse body, but they have not been able to realize the selflessness of the subtle aspects of the skandhas, the subtle aspects of the body.
제장 냥투바 남지 강사가 딱 메버떡 이나 추지 딱 메버 마떡 장집 선바 남지 추다 강사가 딱 메니가 떡 세바지고레다 디고레스 대나테 마떡다 히타고 말이스.
So that's why we say that the hearers realize the selflessness of the person, but not the selflessness of phenomena. And so the bodhisattvas realize the selflessness of both the person and phenomena.
제장 냥투바 남지 퐁보락바데 더 둥허라 속바 브 추고난 그 다다 주드르그 ዝ긴데 추임버 드리임버 추와난 긴제니 디 퐁보다 덕단지 우유 그 요리 삼대 요리 예나야 공소 디 퐁보고 논체데 마용와 그 쳇데 공소 답시단 그 요리스.
So when we go back to our metaphor of the reflection of the black snake in water, the hearers, they, again, they see the snake here is representing the body and the skandhas, and so they're, it is in the water, and so really what they're seeing is like a confused perception. But they think that it is real. So they think that, the body, because they think that the body is real, then they think that it can also harm them. And so then they do things to try to get rid of it, try to avoid being harmed.
Okay,
so we have 10 minutes for questions. If there are any questions, you feel free to ask.
Here.
Okay.
So then what would be the difference? A bodhisattva is not a Buddha yet. And then what was keeping a bodhisattva from becoming a Buddha when a bodhisattva and an arhat are different? I guess it's two questions. Bodhisattva is not a Buddha. They're still not there yet. Arhat has a different view than bodhisattva view. They're not there yet. So why is a bodhisattva not a Buddha?
Da janchu samba tende na janchu samba de sangi drubge ordin drubyo mani shinere so janchu samba dang sangi ni chebar khadres check the ni drachomba yang drachomba top yorde yen yang sangi yang marde so de yang chebar check yong gido ani janchu samba dang drachomba ni chebar khadres.
Oh yeah. Ta tela ngatso tere drop yabodo.
It's a good question.
Karirese ngatso lama nabi mangak mara damgak sonde sentient tamche sanjiri sonde te nilukunguni samlo tank yores. Ta de lam nyamlen ka kansak ki korang ka rambakhe ga yores. Tenya iwa che goate dadangi kanzab demba tondum demba ni ka pechi yores yate ho tati kafs yores.
Right, so when sometimes we get teachings that are from the Lama that are pith instructions. Statements like all sentient beings are Buddhas. That's a statement, a pith instruction that comes from the context of a description of the natural state. But here we are talking about in the context of teachings that are aimed at individuals on the path, individuals who are practicing on the path. So that's the kind of point of view that this is framed within. So from that perspective, when we are still on the path, then we need to draw these distinctions. And so that's why I said that this is, in this context, conventional and ultimate, that the kind of dichotomy between, the contrast between them, that's really useful for us in this context.
Perna tondam demba am tondam niluk ki wang tana sentient tamche sanji yin na janchu ba de sanji yin ba ajang chance. Ajang chance, of course.
Okay. So, for example, from the perspective of the natural state, from the, in other words, in absolute or ultimate truth, then all sentient beings, of course, all sentient beings are Buddhas.
Yenayang, Ganzub Dembi Wanda Dana, Jipsamalaripayang, Ganzub Dembi Wanda, Tamchit Yoki Tapi Song, Sadi Jipsamalak Songra. Tell the Ganzub Dembi Wanda Dana Koran Lam Yori, Lam Yamselink Ganza Yori, Ganzak di Koram Yori, Yoni Chanchimba San Tubjuri, Tobia Maris. Ganzub Dembi Wanda, Tamchit Yoki Tapi Songs. Ganzub Demba Wanda Shanana. 다지 김지 인터라서 봐 탐지 요래지 토바 상지 좀 든지 공랑 송 요래스.
But then from the viewpoint of conventional or relative truth, then like Lord Milarepa has a line, a verse where he says that, from the perspective of conventional truth, everything is exists. So all the teachings, all of the, we have a path, we have individuals practicing the path. Those individuals need to take account of karma and cause and effect. They need to, apply various methods and so forth. So that's from the perspective, from a conventional perspective.
제장 베나 드라촌바 그 똑바당 상주선배 똑바니가데 발랑게 미지가 치당 잠서 침보나긴 잡아려 요래 송 요래스. 대랑 효과를 무지 송하당 저버리스. 디 잡으러 요레스.
So that's like, again, we can see from the perspective of like, if we want to compare an arhat to a bodhisattva, for instance, it's similar to this quote that Rinpoche gave us this morning of the difference of the amount of water in a cow's hoof print and the amount of water in the ocean. You know, that's the difference.
Yeah. Next question.
So if the 5 person around the pond step in the pond, who will be bited by the snake? Which person will hit the bite?
Okay, that's true. check it. Minga tagyo jwa. Ti kozo chunona komba chikpona chun zina. They so jam girive. So druge sula so jam girisa.
Sachigla so jam maris.
And no one. It won't bite anyone.
Then angagres.
That's a really important point.
Karti so jam kunchi yonna mechik menduk samdana te loktok chakzares.
Because if there were something in the water that could bite, and then people acted as if it didn't bite and there's no risk of being bitten, that is a misunderstanding. That's a wrong understanding.
비엔나가 좀 남기소요 솔와세 지가 메석 차죠 신들이 솔와 낙보데 동가보인 삼다나 나면 이 말지 된다고 맨발라 염버 겁나데 니룩 당가리오리 틴더 당가르디오리 추니 당가르디오리.
So, for instance, you can take a lump of charcoal that will never be a white conch shell. It just won't. And so when we practice, we cannot be saying that something is what it isn't. You know, you have to, that if you say that something is something that it isn't, then you are contravening, you are in contravention of the natural state. You are in contravention of dependent origination. You are in contravention of the nature of reality of dharmata. So you cannot, spend time saying that something is what it isn't.
배우나가서 예니 상디 임발라 임버시바 세와 나긴 예니 줄 메발라 메버시바가 토니 더니 졸라 메비 나라야 라도고레스 따티 미유레스.
And so that's why our goal actually is to be able to realize that we are Buddhas, but we have to realize that what we actually are. And we have to practice to bring about the realization of what we actually are. So the goal is actually freedom from effort, because it's just being what you are.
배우나가서 라곰디야 라니 Chenresig menbar semke tangani tak yo mare samni tani yembar gondayana badengarwari diore di jemchang yeni hlai rangjin yemba ngishi yobi thogoni gomgo yores di jemchang ba Rongzom ba nawa la drup sewa de zo darang rikpa ga dbya ga chet song yor.
So similarly, when we practice deity yoga, when we visualize ourselves as the deity, we might have a feeling that this isn't who we are. But actually, the reason that we're visualizing ourselves as the deity is to destroy that grasping at duality, at a difference between ourselves and the deity. So we're trying to, destroy that dualistic grasping. And so the Rongzom actually talks about this in a work called Establishing Appearances as the Divine. That's actually been translated into English. It's available. It's been published. So. Yeah, so it's been translated into English and with a full kind of introduction, and analysis. So.
Oh yeah. The last question. Just one. 他在举手。Oh, okay. 他要谁先就谁。Who's first?
Yeah, Khenpo. So like this whole thing, we're using the example of this reflection of the snake, like talking about this entire teaching. And in the beginning, Khenpo mentioned that it doesn't matter if there is like really a snake or not, like we're just talking about the reflection, right? So my question is like, if there's no snake, then like how can there be a reflection? Like what would cause the reflection to arise in the first place? And then if there is a snake, like what is the snake in this analogy, like in this example, like what would the actual snake be?
So the chunang dru nakpoge sugnian res dru yodamen chevar mendos Khenpo shembe not this line chicken north.
Chunang ko dru yomi ke chapra yo marsina chunang la dru yo mari che zang nangwi nang zam mari nangwi chanyi la zog yore se odi chunang la dru yomi zog yore de zog yore da yenna yang dru ta nang yore wesena dru yo ban zhawo jing tong ku yore wesena changma tong ku yore yenna tinguni dru wesena ani menga de zoba jap yore es.
Okay, so let me just clarify the first. I only asked the first part of the question so far. So this statement that Khenpo made earlier, just to clarify that the debate about the snake that we see among philosophical traditions is they're debating whether or not there is a snake. So different people have different positions, but does anybody debate that we see the snake? No, everybody sees the snake, but different people interpret it as existing or not existing. So, so which follow-up do you want? So if there's no snake, how can the reflection?
Yeah, like what? Yeah, if there's no snake, then like how does the reflection arise? Like what is causing the reflection to appear?
So drungone mena sugnin kande shargres. The drungone yona dru de cartires.
Be dang be jin ni ga changma dawa yo maris. Chok changma nin drangken ke be jin ni ga sen jerwa se yong go maris. Chok changma nin dra chang na be chak maris. Ja tham ba ndawo yana.
Okay.
Je zang da dur de yang je dang nga chu la gob da ji choya che der mar to ti dur gu zung nim de dur li chong ma chong gu ka sha de yo maris.
So basically metaphors have limits. So there's no metaphor that you can 100% identify every aspect. So the point of this metaphor here is just to get us thinking about the appearance. So it's not, yeah.
Yena yang nga cho gun de ge sang nian na ni hip chak bu jin ni de ge men nga yo go ya ge jim chen be den da xi xia ya ge jim chen chang ma de yak bu yong ge res ani di ga sa ha ku ge res da da ni zhe yo me jiang jiang sang lo dang go ma res zo den di ge nang dun gen ru ji ge ba ro dang xin de ba de be za qin bo le xia si de rongzom ba ge ri ba ro de.
So however, in the next couple of days, we're going to go through it in detail. And, just follow along and, you'll see how it gets worked through in different contexts. And so it's not actually, don't get hung up on, is there a snake or isn't there a snake? Watch the process unfold. And that's, it's actually, this is a method, and this is also part of Rongzom's reasoning, really incredible powers of reasoning.
직신나 가서 년 타말라 저 친구 지라 니 그랬지 양문나 저 물음 당 그랬어.
So it's possible that on the last day we're going to find a really big snake. or maybe we'll all just dream about snakes.
두지지. Finish.
Page 17.
The Yellow Prayer Book on page 17.
Page 20.
Just as the hero Manjushri realized things as they are, so too did Samantabhadra. I will follow in the path by perfectly dedicating all of these virtues.
English. Long life.
Long
Page
life
20.
on page 20 in English. For this realm, encircled by snow-covered mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness without exception. Tenzin Gyatso, Lord Chenresig, may your life remain steadfast until the end of samsara. Embodiment of the three jewels, great being who upholds and increases the teachings of the Shakya line. You perfectly guide others with your excellent deeds. May you, the precious Guru who accomplishes everything spontaneously, live long. Holder of the teachings of Lord Drikung, great sovereign of the three jewels, through the power of your peerless compassion and the holy Dharma's peaceful light, you bring relief to beings. May your life be long. Known in the noble land as Aryadeva, you emanated into the Gar clan of eastern Tibet as Jondingpa, the heart son of Jinten Gompo. May the life of glorious Garchen remain steadfast for 100 eons. Page 26. May the teaching of the great Drikung Ratna Shri, Master of Interdependence, omniscient Lord of Dharma, who has seen all noble things, be upheld through teachings and practice, through hearing, reflecting, and meditating until the end of existence. Your 1,000 arms are the 1,000 wheel-turning kings. Your 1,000 eyes are the 1,000 Buddhas of this fortunate eon. Your love is boundless like space. I supplicate the Bodhisattva Chenresig. May I swiftly accomplish Chenresig through this virtue, and bring without exception all sentient beings to that state. Thank you. We go to dinner.